Detective Baker's leather-worn badge gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights of the Los Angeles crime lab as he slammed a file onto the stainless steel counter, his gray eyes blazing with a mixture of disbelief and resolve. The ballistics report lay open before him, an unforgiving series of inked notations and microscopic photographs of shell casings, each linked to the fateful afternoon when gunfire shattered the serenity of the cliffside beach house party. 3 bullets had been accounted for, traced to 2 guns recovered in the aftermath, one a standard-issue semi-automatic and the other a custom-modified revolver buried beneath driftwood in the dunes. But the 4th bullet, he realized, had no home. Its rifling marks matched none of the known weapons. No registered owner. No serial number. No paper trail. That anonymous cartridge had come from a ghost gun, untraceable, unregistered, a specter fired by someone who meant to leave no evidence behind. Baker traced a finger through the scatter of shell fragments on the page. "This changes everything," he muttered, feeling the pulse of the case quicken in his veins. Only hours earlier, the department had been ready to close the file on the shooting as a tragic accident, a spat over an argument at the party, a stray shot meant only to wound, not kill, and no clear culprit in sight. The victim, Luna Nozawa's boyfriend Will Spencer, blamed himself for the chaos. Surviving witnesses struggled to recall more than bits of shouting and flashes of steel. But with evidence of a 4th, unknown firearm, Baker knew he faced a clandestine shooter who had planned to obscure his or her identity. He ordered a full reopening of the case, assigning undercover units to sift through surveillance footage, digital logs, and witness statements with renewed urgency. Within a day, a single clue surfaced. Security camera footage from a nearby storefront caught a fleeting glimpse of Electra Forrester, her red hair pulled into a tense knot, slipping away from the beach house minutes before the shots rang out. The cameras had poor resolution, but her distinctive Forrester design locket glinted in the late afternoon sun as she ducked under the awning, her posture rigid with purpose. Detective Baker felt his jaw tighten. Electra, heiress to the Forrester fashion empire, had no official connection to the Spencer clan's feud, yet rumor had it she harbored a clandestine jealousy of Will Spencer's sway over Forrester's young protégé, Luna. He dispatched an officer to tail Electra discreetly, uncovering her secret rendezvous with Deacon Sharp in a dimly lit back room of an upscale bar. Deacon, the ex-convict-turned-family fixer, had his own tangled history with the Forresters, his loyalty continually bought and sold by emotion more than money. When confronted, he admitted that Electra had approached him in desperation, pleading for help to scare Will out of Luna's life. She claimed her motives were born of heartbreak. Will had briefly entertained a modeling contract extension that would have cemented Luna's status at Forrester Creations, but the contract bypassed Electra's own ambitions for a position behind the scenes. Feeling betrayed, she confessed, she wanted Will to fear for his safety, never to pull that power away from her again. Deacon insisted he had only agreed to hire a local thug to fire warning shots into the air, a stunt meant to intimidate, not harm. But the vagaries of fate had turned a warning into tragedy, and now someone else's bullet had been added to the tally. As Baker pieced these revelations together, it became clear that the case was no longer an isolated act of domestic jealousy. The ghost gun's untraceable origins pointed to a wider network, an underground arms trafficking ring capable of slipping weapons across state lines and into the hands of anyone with the cash or connections to pay. The detective's phone buzzed with a secure tip. Evidence that this same ring had been implicated in shipments tied to counterfeit design operations in Europe and Asia, a shadow culture where stolen fashion prints and unlicensed apparel entwined with black market arms sales to finance raids on haute couture workshops. Baker's mind raced. International fashion piracy syndicates laundering cash through unregulated weapon exchanges, fueling violence on California's beaches and beyond. He realized the shooting at the beach party was merely a symptom of a far more insidious disease. Detective Baker convened an emergency meeting with Forrester Creations' head of security, a retired federal agent named Morales, whose reputation for discretion and tenacity had made him the Forrester's secret weapon against corporate espionage. Morales arrived in a charcoal suit, his posture rigid and his gaze alert, carrying a dossier heavy with internal memos and hotel registry logs. Across from him sat Jackson Teague, the WSB field office chief for the region, a no-nonsense operative whose jurisdiction extended over firearms smuggling and transnational crime. The two men eyed each other warily. Corporate security and federal agents rarely shared turf without friction, each protective of their own sources and protocols. But Baker, standing at the head of the mahogany conference table, laid down a simple ultimatum. No single agency could dismantle this network alone. They needed to merge their intelligence streams, coordinate raids, and cross-check financial records tied to both arms deals and clothing copyright violations. Morales exhaled, the first sign of concession. If it's a joint task force, we move fast and clean. No corporate ego, no bureaucratic deadlock. Teague nodded, voice clipped. We'll assign our best undercover agents. We'll need complete access to Forrester's supplier lists and shipping manifests. Within 24 hours, the WSB had embedded undercover officers posing as textile importers, while Forrester Security granted them cover in corporate shipments traveling through the port of Los Angeles. Baker supervised a proliferation of controlled weapon deliveries traced to shell companies with names like Riviera Threads and Couture Logistics, consignments labeled as full leather samples or prototype fabrics. Each crate was scanned electronically by Forrester's internal sensors and then physically inspected under WSB oversight before igniting a sting operation at a rented warehouse in Carson. The takedown was swift. Stacks of counterfeit fashion labels lay amid crates of unlicensed semi-automatic handguns, knockoff designer handbags stuffed with ammunition clips, and invoice records linking payments to offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Electra Forrester's name surfaced repeatedly in the seized ledgers, her coded alias, E4, scribbled beside purchase orders that exceeded her reported personal expenses. Teague motioned to the ledger. She's deeper than a grieving heiress. She's a buyer and possibly a financier. As the fold of actors in this drama narrowed, Detective Baker obtained a search warrant for Electra's penthouse office at Forrester Crest. Beneath the sleek minimalism and high-end decor, agents uncovered a hidden safe behind a panel of couture swatches. Inside lay passports with multiple identities, encrypted USB drives containing shipping manifests for both licensed and unlicensed apparel lines, and a ledger noting dates, times, and codes matching the ballistics timeline of the beach house shooting. Electra's motive crystallized. She had funneled profits from illegal weapon sales into funding a rival fashion line under a pseudonym, hoping to usurp her family's brand and punish Will Spencer by cutting him out of Luna's ascendant career. When he balked at her plan to merge their professional fates, she retaliated through Deacon's intermediary, igniting the deadly volley that nearly killed him and that left Luna fighting for her life. Breaking Electra's complicity open forced a cascade of arrests among the mock fabric front companies, many of which were run by associates of international design pirates eager to diversify their revenue. Morales and Teague led simultaneous raids on manufacturing plants in Vernon and El Monte, netting dozens of operatives and capturing a cache of ghost gun parts ready for assembly. The WSB Cyber Division traced cryptocurrency payments back to a European tight-knit cartel that had specialized in designer knockoffs, revealing how illicit profits financed small-batch firearms shipped through freight channels intended for harmless textiles. Each new arrest peeled back another layer of the conspiracy, exposing the intricate dance between luxury goods counterfeiting and underground arms dealing. At Forrester Crest, the fallout was both personal and public. Ridge Forrester, confronted with his daughter's complicity in organized crime, faced a choice between corporate loyalty and paternal justice. In a rare public address broadcast on Forrester's social media channels, Ridge announced the immediate suspension of Electra's shares and the initiation of an internal audit, pledging transparency and cooperation with law enforcement. The statement was searing in its brevity: no family bond excuses criminal behavior. Forrester Creations stands for integrity, and we will root out any corruption that jeopardizes our values. On the steps of the courthouse, Baker praised the combined efforts of corporate and federal agents, hailing the bust as a model for public-private collaboration in the fight against transnational crime. Within days, international headlines splashed the story across fashion magazines and crime journals alike. Designer knockoffs fuel gun smuggling ring read one banner. Forrester scandal rocks luxury industry, read another. The stock price of Forrester Creations dipped briefly but rebounded swiftly after Ridge's decisive action and a surprise collaboration announcement with the Fashion Licensing Council to implement blockchain tracking for future shipments. Spencer Publications, having provided critical digital forensics linking Electra's cryptocurrency transactions to shipments of spurious couture, earned commendation from the WSB for its role. An unexpected boost to the media company's recently embattled public image. Back in his office, Detective Baker closed the case file with a sense of wary satisfaction. The ghost gun that had threatened to leave its mark on an unspeakable tragedy had instead unraveled a global syndicate that blurred the boundaries between glamour and violence. As for Electra Forrester, she awaited extradition in a high-security holding cell, her glamorous facade replaced by prison garb and regret. In the aftermath of the Joint Task Force's dramatic raids, the reverberations of Detective Baker's discovery echoed through every corner of both Spencer Publications and Forrester Creations. But life in Los Angeles's gilded corridors did not pause for long, and neither did the tangled skein of loyalties, betrayals, and fragile allegiances that bound these powerful families together. Electra Forrester's arrest at her penthouse office, handcuffed beneath the stark glare of flashbulbs, seemed at first a sharp exclamation point to a story that began with a gunshot on a windswept bluff, yet for the Forresters and Spencers alike, her fall only opened a new chapter of uncertainty and peril. Ridge Forrester, feeling the sting of paternal failure at having misjudged his daughter's hidden vices, retreated to his private design atelier under the guise of crisis management isolation, sketching somber silhouettes in charcoal as if each stroke might erase his own culpability. Brooke, ever the peacemaker, surrounded him with floral arrangements and soothing platitudes, but Ridge only shook his head, confessing in a rare moment of vulnerability that he had always believed love could conquer ambition. And now he feared that in Forrester Crown had been warped into an iron circlet of vanity. Meanwhile, Donna Logan took advantage of the public furor to launch a soft power campaign. Using her decades of media savvy, she arranged a series of intimate interviews that showcased Forrester Creations' commitment to ethical design, while quietly funneling donations to the Luna Nozawa Foundation to reinforce the alliance between the two estates. Each televised appearance delivered a subtle reminder that corruption could be rooted out, but only if those who wielded power acknowledged their missteps and pled their fealty to a higher principle of creative integrity. On the Spencer side of town, Wyatt Spencer seized the moment to reassert his leadership. With Bill Spencer still missing in action, rumored to be hiding with Liam atop a remote mountain retreat, Wyatt convened a special shareholder summit at Spencer Publications headquarters, unveiling a bold new initiative. The Spencer Transparency Pact, a comprehensive overhaul of corporate governance that mandated real-time disclosure of executive expenditures, an independent audit committee, and a zero-tolerance policy for clandestine deals. He framed the initiative as both an atonement for his father's shadowy financial practices and an embrace of a modern ethos that valued accountability as highly as profit. Grace Buckingham, newly elevated to acting CEO in Bill's absence, lauded Wyatt's vision, emphasizing that the pact would not only restore investor confidence, but also honor the memory of Luna by ensuring no future scandal could be hidden behind closed doors. As the charts on the big screen monitors trended upward in response to the pledge, Katie Logan allowed herself a cautious smile. Recognizing that Wyatt's ascendant star might eclipse her own efforts, but also acknowledging that unity between Spencers and Forresters required the harmony of each family's rising generation. Yet beneath this veneer of corporate reform, the detective's investigation had only begun to unfold. Detective Baker, thrilled by the early successes, turned his attention beyond California's borders, coordinating with Interpol to trace the European cartel that financed the Ghost Gun network through fashion piracy. As encrypted transmissions crossed the Atlantic, Baker unearthed a series of bank transfers routed through shell corporations in Milan and Zurich, each summoning further questions about the complicity of high-end tailors who had unwittingly, or perhaps willfully, served as mule accounts for the weapons trade. Back in Los Angeles, the WSB Cyber Division flagged suspicious email threads indicating that certain Forrester shipping manifests had been altered post-inspection to conceal crates of disassembled ghost gun kits. Morales, the retired federal agent turned head of Forrester Security, faced an internal crisis of conscience. He had trusted that the shipments flagged by Morales' own sensors were purely textile samples, yet the raids had exposed gaps in his protocols. Consumed by professional guilt, Morales spearheaded an immediate review of every container that had passed through Forrester's docks over the past year, sending stop work orders on any inbound cargo from suspect manufacturers and collaborating closely with WSB agents to reopen dozens of seized imports for forensic analysis. Amid the swirl of cyber sweeps, boardroom upheavals, and transnational detective work, Luna Nozawa remained encased in her ICU cocoon, a fragile testament to how far the families had fallen from the bright optimism they once projected. Dr. Lee Finnegan, whose secret withholding of Luna's survival status had nearly ignited a second inferno of scandal, now worked tirelessly to correct her mistake, instituting daily medical briefings open to any family member who signed non-disclosure waivers. In hushed sessions behind closed doors, Poppy Nozawa, the girl's adoptive mother, found herself torn between her gratitude for Lee's last-ditch effort to save Luna's life and her fury at the deception that had nearly cost Luna her dignity. Poppy convened impromptu support meetings at the Foundation's offices, offering therapy sessions for family members and medical staff alike, determined to salvage a measure of trust through radical transparency. And all the while, steeling herself for the day Luna would emerge from her coma, if only to confront the labyrinth of secrets that had formed around her. As summer edged toward autumn, two parallel sagas unfolded: the forensic cat-and-mouse game between international law enforcement and the designers-turned-gunrunners, and the delicate political dance inside the boardrooms and hospital corridors of Los Angeles's most illustrious dynasties. At Forrester Creations, Ridge and Brooke secured a last-ditch settlement with Quinn Fuller, whose machinations over Eric's guardianship had been temporarily stalled by a judge's emergency injunction, but whose presence continued to haunt the hallways. Quinn, undeterred by her legal setback, launched a social media blitz recasting herself not as a power-hungry ex-wife, but as a grieving mother seeking to protect her child's legacy. Forcing the Forresters to balance public perception against their private disdain, Ridge responded by doubling down on production of the Innocence Capsule collection, garments inspired by Luna's favorite pastel hues and delicate patterns, intending each runway show to reaffirm the brand's commitment to purity, hope, and renewal even as the ghost of Quinn's claim lingered in the background. On the Spencer side, The media storm around the transparency pact drew both praise and cynicism. Pundits hailed Wyatt's leadership as a turning point for family-run enterprises, but whispers of Bill's influence, shadow directives sent via encrypted messages to the remote cabin where he tended Liam, suggested that the elder Spencer might still be pulling strings from afar, determined to reclaim his throne at the first sign of weakness. Grace Buckingham, uneasy at the possibility of unseen sabotage, strengthened internal firewalls around the company's digital infrastructure and appointed a team of external auditors with no ties to the Spencer Circle. These auditors, in turn, discovered a series of retroactive approvals on expense reports that appeared to benefit an obscure charity in the Cayman Islands. An entity with no obvious connection to Bill or any known philanthropic cause, yet large enough to raise red flags about potential money laundering. The audit team's findings, leaked inadvertently to gossip columns, prompted yet another press conference in the Spencer Publications lobby, where Grace and Katie delivered tightly rehearsed statements vowing full cooperation with federal investigators and reaffirming their commitment to ethical stewardship. As the net slowly closed around the international arms cartel, Baker's team achieved a breakthrough. Intercepted communications revealed that the Milan-based ring was planning a consignment shipment disguised as haute couture gowns destined for a high-profile charity auction in Beverly Hills, an event that would gather an elite audience of socialites, celebrities, and potential buyers, unwittingly providing the perfect cover for another ghost gun drop. Baker alerted Morales and the WSB, who coordinated a covert operation on the auction's loading docks. In the cool pre-dawn hours, agents in plainclothes swapped the crates bound for the auction house with inert mock UPS, then stationed surveillance in the ornate parking garage beneath the venue, ready to pounce on any attempt to recover the weapons.